I lost 50 pounds in just 4 months back in 2018, but I did it the hard way and made every mistake in the book. Today, I'll be taking you through 18 more lessons I learned along the way so that your journey is 10 times faster and easier. Lesson number one is that try as you might, you cannot spot reduce fat. And this is an important lesson because a lot of people will do things like crunches or sit-ups to try and lose belly fat, but that's not going to work and it's actually going to slow your progress down. Let me explain. The way that you lose fat is largely down to your genetics, your hormones, and your gender. In other words, three factors that are completely out of your control. So you don't want to worry about spot reducing fat, but if you do want to do some exercises that are going to speed up the process, then you want to focus on what we call compound movements. These are exercises like squats, deadlifts, lunges, hip thrusts, pull-ups, push-ups, dips, chest press, lat pull downs. I could go on, but hopefully you get the idea. They're the exercises that use the biggest muscles in your body. And that's very important because the bigger the muscle that you're using, the bigger the contraction. And the bigger the contraction, the harder your body has to work. So the harder your lungs have to work to breathe in all of that fresh oxygen that we need for the muscle to contract. And then the harder your heart has to work to pump that oxygen in the blood to the muscle so that it can contract. So if you want to speed up the rate that you're losing body fat, you want to focus your exercises, your workouts around these compound movements. Lesson number two is a follow-on from one of the lessons in part one of this video. And that is that the most tempting time to change everything is when you have one bad week. But the second most tempting time to change everything is when everything is going well. Now that might sound a little bit strange, but lesson number two is that you don't want to change everything if things are going well. We have this horrible tendency as human beings, and we're all guilty of this, to self-sabotage. And when things start going in our favor, there's this nagging thought pattern that starts to occur in your brain, which tells you to try and cut the corner. It tells you to try and speed up the process even more because as human beings, we are wired for progress. So once we get used to a certain rate of progress, we want to try and get it even faster. That's why we're top of the food chain. However, when it comes to changing your physiology, changing your body, it's very difficult to do that. And more often than not, if you try and speed the process up even more, you're more likely to quit sooner, which obviously you want to avoid. We're trying to get long-term sustainable results and ultimately build a healthier lifestyle. So when you start to build that momentum, when things start going well for you, when you start to lose a little bit of weight, when you've got the proven formula, system, blueprint, roadmap, whatever you want to call it, and you're losing a pound or even two every single week, the temptation to change everything will start to increase. But resist that. There's a phrase that I absolutely love to use with my clients, which is rinse and repeat. Because listen, it's very normal and natural that you're going to get a little bit bored along your weight loss journey. Because once you're 6, 8, 10 weeks in and you're sort of losing a pound or two of fat every single week, it will get a little bit tedious. It's funny though, because when you first started out, that felt probably out of your reach. You were like, oh, I wish I could do that. Now you've got it, you want to get it faster. But the challenge is to stay the course. The discipline actually almost works in the other way. It's not to stop, it's to just keep doing what you're doing. Lesson number three is to be aware of liquid calories. So a client of mine called Adam, who's been with me since November 2023, absolute legend. Adam, if you're watching, love you, bro, you're smashing it. He came to me and he was already doing a fair bit of the sort of stuff we talk about in my videos. He was already going to the gym. He actually already had a personal trainer who he saw twice a week face to face, and he was going another 2 times by himself. He was already aware of his steps. He was trying to make good food choices when it came to his diet, but he still couldn't lose any weight, and he was incredibly frustrated. So we started working together, and I said to him, listen, it's going to be a little bit of a ball ache, but for the first few days, I want you to track your calories. We need to try and diagnose and figure out what's going on here. Anyway, it didn't even take 3 to 5 days. Within 24 hours, Adam messaged me very excitedly, and he was like, Doug, I figured it out. And I was like, what is it? I opened up the message, and sure enough, he was drinking 600 calories a day from Starbucks, having some Fropa, Maca, Waka, Chino, or whatever the heck it is. And the fact of the matter is that most people just are blissfully unaware of the number of calories that can be in some of these drinks. We're all aware of the calories in the sugary drinks. We're all aware of the calories in the alcohol, but the stuff that you get in your Starbucks, your Costa, your Cafe Nero, your, I don't know, whatever coffee house you go to, there are tons of calories in these drinks. And I'm not saying you have to cut them out, but if you're struggling to lose weight and you don't know why and you feel like you're doing everything right, do an audit of your calories because you might find that you're drinking your calories rather than eating them. Segueing from that, lesson number 4 is that you don't have to give up your favorite foods when you're doing this. You just have to hit your calorie deficit. So in part 1 of this video, we talked about the power of the calorie deficit, the fact that when you are burning more calories than you are eating, you are going to be burning fat, you're going to be losing weight because it forces your body to use the stored fat as fuel. By the way, again, if you haven't already, make sure that you click the link in the description that's underneath this video and use my completely free calorie calculator. It's going to send you an exact calorie target so that you know exactly what you should be eating and so that you can start burning fat today. But the point is, again, a lot of people think that when they go into their calorie deficit, that means they have to give everything up, and they don't. For most people, my suggestion is to eat 80% of your food for function and 20% for fun. And that fun part is very important. You want to make sure that your diet is enjoyable, because if it's enjoyable, you're far more likely to stick with it. 95% of people quit their diet because they can't adhere to it. Adherence, being able to stick with it, is the number one determining factor when it comes to your success with this stuff. It's not whether you're doing vegan, carnivore, keto, intermittent fasting, or any other nonsense like that. It's whether you can stick to it. And being able to stick to it largely comes down to enjoying it. So what you want to be doing is sprinkling in treats to your diet every single day. Something that's within your calories, but you actually enjoy. So for me, 2 good examples I've got: Fanta Lemon Zero Sugar. It's like 5 calories per cup or glass, whatever you want to say. So it costs me absolutely nothing in terms of calories. And then dark chocolate. So funnily enough, the calories in dark chocolate are pretty similar to the calories in milk chocolate, but it's far less moreish. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have 2 squares and you're like, I'm done. I don't need any more. So the calories might be equal, but I'm far less likely to end up binging on it. Also, you have to remember that the ingredients of dark chocolate are far better than the milk chocolate. Those are just examples of the treats that I have every single day to make sure that I can stick to my calories. Yours are going to be different and unique to you. So think about how you're going to fill the 20% of your diet with things that you actually enjoy, and then the 80% that's going to come naturally to you. Lesson number 5 is that you will get tired and you're probably going to be grumpy. But that's okay. Listen, when you start putting your body through a process of changing, when you start losing weight and burning body fat, our brains really don't like that. They love to stay in what we call homeostasis, which is basically just staying the same. Because your brain doesn't necessarily know that you're overweight, obese, unhappy with your body, not confident, whatever else it might be. It just knows that you're alive. And your brain's number one priority is to keep you alive. And more often than not, no change will lead to a higher likelihood that you survive than some change. When you put yourself into a calorie deficit, when you start eating less, your brain goes, what's going on here? It can't see that you have unlimited access to food and drinking water and all that good stuff. It thinks that there's a famine. It thinks that you're going to have to go out further to hunt. And what it's going to do is it's going to spike your cortisol levels. It's going to spike your stress hormone. So you're going to feel grumpier. You're going to feel a little bit more on edge. You're going to be shorter with people. And that's absolutely normal. The other thing that happens when your cortisol level goes up, though, is it makes it harder for you to fall asleep. Because again, your brain is trying to keep you alert. It's trying to keep you awake because it thinks you need to go further and farther to try and hunt for the food. So you might find yourself lying in bed, tossing and turning. But don't worry, that will pass once your brain resets and understands exactly what you're trying to do with the body. Lesson number 6 is that tracking food sucks, but it works. Listen, I'll be the first to admit it. Tracking your food is boring, it's repetitive, it's tedious, it's just blah, isn't it? But despite all the little cons that it comes with, the one benefit that you get outweighs all of them because it works. And listen, the thing that puts a lot of people off calorie tracking is they think it's a life sentence. They think, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this for the rest of my life. But nothing could be further from the truth. If you diligently track your calories for 6 to 8 weeks, you're never going to have to do it again. This is a life skill that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. In fact, it's so valuable that if I was in charge of the world or the government or whatever, I would be teaching this to kids in school. We teach kids the value of money. We teach kids the value of currency. But if you think about it, calories are your body's currency. And yet we never teach our kids this. We tell them that carbs are bad, that sugar will kill you and all this other stuff. And 8 weeks is nothing. You're going to live about 4,000 weeks. 8 weeks is 64 short days. It's 0.2% of your life. And if you think that this is a skill that you're going to have for the rest of your life, I think that's a pretty good trade. You're going to start to see food like Neo sees the Matrix. You're going to be able to eyeball your plate, your bowl, and know pretty accurately how many calories are in it and the macro splits. The other big benefit of food tracking is that it removes the guesswork. A lot of us are going through life making decisions based on how we feel and our emotional state. But guess what? You're not going to get very far if you're doing that. You want to make your decisions based on logic. And logic comes from having the data. And the best way to get that data, you guessed it, is to track your calories. So if you're feeling a little bit of resistance to this, what I would say to you is this. Stop dancing around the hard work, because nobody flukes this. There is a very clear correlation between the people who track their calories and the people who get their results. Lesson number 7 is that losing 50 pounds or losing 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 100 pounds, however many pounds you want to lose, does not solve all of life's problems. My initial motivation to lose the 50 pounds came from a breakup. I was heartbroken by a girl I was very much in love with. And my internal monologue was telling me that I lost her because I wasn't in good enough shape. So that lit a fire in my belly to lose the 50 pounds. And that's why I was able to lose it in such a short amount of time, despite the fact that there were nights when I cried myself to sleep. But the fact of the matter is, once I lost the 50 pounds, we actually met up for lunch. And I can tell you something, nothing had changed. And it was a big aha moment for me, because I wasn't annoyed that I'd spent the time and put the effort in to lose the 50 pounds, because I obviously looked a lot better, felt a lot better, my confidence was up, energy, everything else, all the other amazing benefits that you get from losing a significant amount of weight. But I suppose I went into it with this goal of trying to win her back, and that didn't happen, so it felt like I'd failed. Now, the reality is, it was just the trigger that I needed to pull to shoot the bullet out of the gun to get the result that actually I wanted to help me take my life to the next level. But it was a hard lesson to learn, because I thought if I did this, if I did all this work, it was going to solve all of my problems. But that just isn't true. Now, it will make your life significantly better, so I'm not saying that to put you off, but I just want to forewarn you that don't expect everything else to be solved once you get to the target weight that you're aiming for. Lesson number 8, and this is a big one, is that sleep is important. I used to see health and fitness as a little bit of a pyramid with 3 equal parts, with sleep, nutrition, and movement. However, the older I've gotten, the wiser I've gotten, the more clients I've worked with and the better results that I've helped them to get, the more that I've realized that sleep is the foundation that sits beneath movement and nutrition. And without that foundation, everything else falls apart. Here's the thing though, everybody is hyperfixated on the quantity of sleep, the amount of hours they're sleeping per night. And everybody knows that they should be sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night. I mean, let's be honest, 9 hours is a little bit of a pipe dream. I would love to get that, but whether it's kids, busy jobs, stress, or just being up later because we're distracted by our phones, social media, Netflix, whatever else it might be, I think there's a little bit too much fixation on the sleep quantity and not enough on the sleep quality. Because in my experience, if you can get 7 hours of high quality sleep, you'll feel just as good as someone who gets 9 hours in bed. Because there's a big difference between being in bed and being actually in deep REM sleep. So to optimize the quality of your sleep, you want to do 2 things. First and foremost, you want to focus on improving your sleep environment. To do that, you want to make sure that your bedroom is as cold, dark, quiet, and well ventilated as possible. So to fix those 3 things, you want to go on Amazon and add these 3 things to your shopping cart. And don't worry, none of them are going to break the bank, but they're all going to have a huge positive impact. First and foremost, we've got some earplugs. That's going to cost you like $5. But once you find the pair that work, they're amazing, because you'll be surprised how much background noise can knock you out of deep sleep when you think you're asleep throughout the whole night. Secondly, you want to get yourself a fan, because the cooler that your core body temperature is whilst you're asleep, the better you're going to sleep. Thirdly, you want to get yourself a blackout blind, shutter, or curtain, because again, you'll be surprised how much light can interfere with your sleep quality. In terms of the ventilation, if it's safe for you to do so, then I'd encourage you to sleep with your bedroom door open. If not, and as long as you don't live in a loud city or neighborhood, then I would just crack the window open a little bit. You might not even need the fan if you can do that, particularly during the winter months. And I guarantee you're going to sleep better, because what people don't realize is when they're sleeping with their bedroom door shut, they're just breathing in recycled carbon dioxide. When you keep your bedroom door open, or when you have a window open, you're getting fresh oxygen in. The other thing that you want to do to improve your sleep quality is the 3-2-1 rule. This is where you stop eating 3 hours before you go to sleep, stop drinking 2 hours before you go to sleep, and come off all of your screens, whether it's the TV, whether it's your phone, your laptop, an hour before you sleep. Because eating is a metabolic process. It's going to raise your heart rate. And when we want to go to sleep, we want to lower our heart rate to a resting level. Drinking, whether it's water, alcohol, soda, or anything else, is going to fill your bladder. And when your bladder's full, you're more likely to wake up in the night and have to go to the bathroom, which is going to disrupt your sleep. And all of these devices, we all know that they emit blue light. What most people don't realize is the harmful nature of that blue light. And what it's doing is blocking the production of your sleep hormone, which is called melatonin. Lesson number 9 is that other people will try to derail you. Now, this is a really hard one, but it's an important lesson that I teach my clients, because you would think when you lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, that everybody around you would be wanting to celebrate. They'd be lining up in the streets to throw you a parade or a party, but it isn't true. The reality is that some people, not everybody, but some people will start to resent you. And this is actually a good time to figure out who your real friends are, because you'll see the people who support you and the people who start to turn against you. Now, I don't have a solution for this, unfortunately, but I think just being aware of it is a massive plus. And by the way, if you're still with me, first and foremost, I appreciate you. But if you haven't already, now would be a great time to tap that subscribe button. Lesson number 10 is that it gets harder towards the end. At the start of your weight loss journey, as long as you're in a calorie deficit, you should see the weight come off quite fast. You might lose 5, 10 pounds in the first few weeks. But as you get closer and closer to your goal weight, as you get leaner and leaner, you will find that the rate of change, the speed that you're losing that weight, will slow down. And again, this is where that temptation that we talked about earlier in the video will come in. But don't worry, don't panic, don't deviate, because remember, you've got all the evidence to show that you're doing the right thing, that you're moving in the right direction. It's far more important to be on the right trajectory than to be worrying about the speed. But just to illustrate this, I'm actually going to put a couple of photos on the screen for you right now. And you can see the date stamp on these photos. They're only a couple of weeks apart, but look at the difference in my body. Now, the reality is the difference in my weight between these two photos is probably only a couple of pounds. But aesthetically, it looks like I've lost another 20. And this comes back to what I spoke to you about earlier with that process called homeostasis, where your brain wants to try and keep you the same. As you get closer and closer to your goals, you get leaner and leaner, your brain will make your body as efficient as it possibly can. And what that means at a physiological cellular level is it will make every single cell hold on to that little bit more water. And you're going to be confused as to why the scales have stalled. But don't panic. You're still losing the body fat under the hood. You just can't see it on the scales or even in your progress photos. But stay the course. Lesson number 11 is a hard one, but an important one. And that's that you have to learn to say no and be selfish. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to change. And change requires change. That means you're going to have to say no to things. That means you're going to have to change your ways, because what you've been doing up until this point is not going to get you what you want. And when you say no, when you're selfish, people don't understand. People get annoyed at you. This is where they start gaslighting you. But just be aware that this is going to come. At the end of the day, yes, I suppose technically you're being selfish, but what would they say to you if you were on an aircraft? It's more important for you to fit your own oxygen mask first than it is someone else's, because if you're dead, you're useless to everybody. Lesson number 11 is that you want to split your calorie deficit. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is that they get their calorie deficit target and then they just eat that many calories. So let's say they figured out that their maintenance calorie number was 2,500 and they wanted to lose a pound of fat a week. So they would aim to eat about 2,000 calories a day, because they know that if they're in a 500 calorie deficit, they're going to burn a pound of fat a week, because there are 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat. 500 times by 7 days in a week is 3,500. However, what they will do, as I say, is they will just eat 500 calories less. That's not the best way to do it. What you want to do is eat 250 calories less and move 250 calories more. And you can do that very simply just by walking 8,000 steps a day. Now, that might sound hard, and I get it, because the average number of steps that the Brits and the Americans walk a day is only 3,000, which I'll be honest with you, is pitiful. But it is what it is. We are where we are. You can do more than double that in less than an hour. As long as you're walking at a brisk pace and you're focused, you can get 8,000 steps in 60 minutes. And the best part about walking is that you can multitask while you're doing it, whether it's listening to an audiobook, a playlist, a podcast, speaking to a friend on the phone, or do what a lot of my clients have done and switch their Zoom meetings to walking meetings, because everybody's sick of Zoom anyway. But the lesson here is to split your deficit. I guarantee you it's going to make it a heck of a lot easier for you. Lesson number 13 is that home-cooked meals aren't necessarily healthy, because what a lot of my clients don't realize is that their other half, their partner, or maybe even themselves, are adding a lot of calories to their meals from butter and oil. So I'm not saying that I want you to eat tasteless food or your food can't have any flavor. but you just want to be careful of the hidden calories in the oil and in the butter. Lesson number 14 is to not focus on your goal weight. And that's because big goals feel like mountains. What you want to try and do is come up with a proven system, formula, blueprint, roadmap, whatever word you want to call it, that works for you, that helps you to lose 1 pound of fat. Once you've got that system in place, once you know how to lose 1 pound of fat, once you've got a system that's sustainable for you and you don't have to shift your entire life around it, all you have to do is rinse and repeat. The challenge is not focusing on that goal weight, because I did this every single day. I knew I wanted to lose about 50 pounds. I had this goal weight in my head. Got to get down to it, got to get down to it. And if I stalled or if I went up in weight, God forbid, I felt like a complete and utter failure. And the temptation to quit, to give up, grew and grew and grew. All you want to do is focus on losing the next pound, the next pound, the next pound. It doesn't even really matter how fast you're losing it. As long as you're continuing to move in the right direction, as long as you're continuing to walk down a path that's getting you closer to your goals, you don't need to think about your big goals. Because here's the thing, you might lose half the weight towards your goal weight and realize that you actually like your body how it is now. Because what's going to happen, particularly if you're combining a weight loss journey with resistance training and lifting weights in the gym, is that you're going to start building some muscle. So you might lose, in my example, let's say 25 pounds, but you might put on 5 pounds of muscle and think, actually, I look pretty badass now. I might just stay like this. So sometimes we think we know what we want, and then actually we get halfway along the way and realize that we were walking along the wrong path, or we never wanted what we thought we did in the first place. Lesson number 15 is that you can eat out if you follow the KISS system. And the KISS system is keep it simple, stupid. Unless the restaurant that you're in has the calories on the menu, don't even bother trying to track them. Just keep it simple and make sensible decisions. This has become a lot more common in the last few years, but if you're not already doing it, then I'd advise you to look at the menu online before you get to the restaurant and make a firm, concrete decision in your brain of what you're going to have before you get there. 95% of restaurants serve steak or chicken with some form of veg and carb. Have that, and then avoid the table bread, the alcohol, and the desserts. Budget 800 to 1,000 calories for your meal and you're good. This way you can enjoy your meal out. You don't have to dodge the social occasions and you can stay on track. You can keep making progress towards your goals. Lesson number 16 is that doing it alone is 10 times harder. You're going to think you're going insane and you're going to gaslight yourself because what you're doing isn't normal. Think about it. You're actually bucking the trend. The world is getting fatter and you are trying to get thinner. So it's not normal. You're not doing what most people are doing, but that's good because most people are heading down the wrong path. And the solution here is very straightforward. Get an accountability buddy, whether it's a friend, your partner, a family member, a colleague, or even a coach. Get someone who is in your corner, who has got your back and can help you stay motivated on those days, weeks, or even months where you can't be bothered to do it. For lesson number 17, I want to tell you about a powerful tool that you can use to lose weight faster. It's simple, it's effective, but yet hardly anybody uses it. Because here's the thing, controlling your cravings isn't just about forcing yourself to eat less. It actually comes from adding one small thing to your daily routine. And the best part is, you're not going to have to make any more drastic changes or sacrifices. And this secret weapon is fiber. Fiber works in a similar way to protein in the sense that it helps to keep you feeling full for longer. And it does that because it's actually impossible for your body to break down most of the fiber that you eat. So as a result, it sits in your stomach for longer. And just like when you eat more protein, just like when you drink more water, that's going to expand the walls of your stomach. And when the walls of your stomach are expanded, it sends a signal all the way up to the brain, telling your brain that you are full. So it helps make those cravings manageable, and it does all of this without adding any more calories. It's like your body's natural appetite control system that's built straight in. And the easiest way to do this, you've probably heard this before, but remember, we always need to be reminded more than we need to be taught, is to make sure that about a third, if not even a half of your plate is full of fruit or veggies. And lesson number 18 is that you don't need supplements. Supplements can help fill the gaps if your diet isn't perfect, but they're not magic. And a lot of people use them because they think if they pay money, they're going to get the shortcut. The reality is the shortcut, as we talked about in part 1, is the hard work. Focus on eating real food first. Get your protein in and stay consistent. That's where the real progress happens. Most of these fat burners are just extremely high doses of caffeine, and that's going to make you more agitated. It's going to make you more active. So they work in the sense that they make you move around more, but if you wanted that, you can just drink more coffee. That's a heck of a lot cheaper. And there we have it, folks. 18 more lessons and brutal truths adding to the 20 that I gave you in part 1. I really hope you've enjoyed this video, but more importantly, I hope you found it useful. And if you haven't already watched part 1, I'm going to leave a link to it right here. Until next time, cheers.